Welcome back, everyone. For days now, Nigerians have been glued to television sets, newspapers, as well as social media in a bid to hear the latest in what has been termed a political whirlwind on the floor of the Nigerian Senate. An issue involving the senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, and the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, bordering on sexual harassment. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan accused the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, of sexually harassing her. This allegation raised a lot of dust on the floor of the Nigerian Senate. Recall that this whole debacle began from a point the change of seats belonging to Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, which dramatically turned into a shooting match, then petitions after petitions, and finally an accusation. Today, as it stands, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has been suspended and barred from the National Assembly for 6 months after the Senate rejected against the Senate President for violation of rules, a petition which she has now represented. But before walking out of the Senate chambers, the senator says, and I quote, "This injustice shall not stand," end of quote. Tonight, we'll break this whole mystery so everyone can understand. Joining me from Abuja studio is Right Honorable Esemeibo, former spokesperson of the House of Reps and current special advisor, media and publicity, and official spokesperson to the President of the Senate. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight.
Jumoke, thank you very much, viewers. A good evening to everyone.
Thank you. So this has become an emotive issue, but as journalists, we are driven by fact and not sentiment, and that's why it's important for us to have this conversation tonight. Most of my questions tonight will be based on the kinds of conversations I have seen on social media and the thought process of some Nigerians regarding this matter. So let's start this way. Why was Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan suspended? The committee says she violated the rule as contained in Order 6. What does it say?
I didn't hear that last part.
So I said the senator was suspended. So I'm asking, the committee says she violated the rule as contained in Order 6. What does it say?
Well, thank you very much for the question. First, we need to understand what the Senate, or indeed the National Assembly, is all about. National Assembly is a creation and creature of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. And to that extent, it is empowered with the legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the same National Assembly, in its operation and its proceedings, is being empowered by Section 60 of the Constitution. That gives it power to make body of rules and regulations to guide its proceedings. That is the origin of the standing order. It has nothing to do with an individual, and it has nothing to do with any arm other than National Assembly, as it were. So Section 6, sub 1 and 2 empowers the Senate President by that standing order to now allocate seats. Section 2, sub 2 gives him that power for adjustments. Section 11, sub 3, in case of any realignment or the issue of senators defecting from one party to the majority party, that adjustment and that realignment must be done. And Section 50, sub 4, empowers the any senator at any given time. And of course, you will have to, at all times, speak from your seat. And what is Section 10 deals with privileges. What it therefore means is that before any senator can speak, you have to speak from your seat and not from anywhere. From your seat, not from anywhere. If it's an issue bordering on privileges, you have to do that at any given time. You are obliged to do that at any given time, but not from anywhere. So where you intend to speak, if you are not on your seat, you will not be obliged to so do. That is what it's all about. In the instance case, people are mixing the suspension. The issue is the unruly parliamentary conduct.
All right, because what has been said is that it looks like her fate was already decided before her petition was referred to the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions. And she complicated matters by not going through the proper procedure. My next question would be, is outright suspension the only penalty or consequence for anyone who flouts this part of the Senate rules? Is there no window for some sort of an apology, especially because there was no fair hearing?
Well, when you are talking about parliamentary procedure, why people are getting freely to discuss about the procedures, most of the discussants of this issue, they are not versed in parliamentary practice, precedent. There are three things here.
Right.
You are talking about the law that empowers it, that created the constitution, that created the parliament. You are also talking about the standing order, which is what regulates the practice and the proceedings in the parliament. You are also talking about precedent. This thing has been going on over the years. Remember Senator Otton Zeribe of the blessed memory, may so rest in peace. He went through this same process. You remember Dino Melaye? Recently, Senator Ningi was also disciplined in the parliament through this same process of parliamentary procedure. So it has nothing to do with bias. It has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with the fact that she has any problem with anybody. It was a clear issue of
I hear you, Honorable Esemeibo, and that's why you're here tonight. And that's why you're here tonight, to help us understand better what these parliamentary procedures are. And I wanted us to establish that because the conversation that's taken center stage is that she was suspended because she was bold enough to stand up to the Senate president, whom she had accused of, sexually harassing her. And I keep wondering if this means it is okay to break constitutional rules. But, I mean, who says you cannot challenge constitutional rules, especially as the world evolves? What do you make of all of this? The institution is already perceived as, a place meant for men in a Senate with only 4 female senators. I mean, the other day, Senator Reti Kingwe had to walk out of the Senate over FCT demolition issue. Now, when one of these women raises a sexual harassment allegation against the leadership, it automatically casts aspersions on the entire institution. Public sentiment will naturally tilt in her favor. Now, despite the leadership saying there was total disregard for Senate rules, that has become a secondary issue. The dominant narrative out there is sexual harassment. What some Nigerians are saying is she presented a petition and shortly after she was suspended. So I want us to talk about that and also the representation of her petition.
Jumoke, I think we have to be very honest in our conversation on this issue. This incident took place on the 20th of February. And on that 20th, until day before yesterday, or until yesterday, there was never a time that Senator Natasha made a petition, made a report to either the police, law enforcement agency, or to the Senate over the issue of sexual harassment. The issue of sexual harassment came up when she appeared on Arise television. That was where she now made this allusion of sexual harassment. And of course, by the time that this matter came up under privilege, the matter I'm talking about is the issue of the breach of the standing orders. The breach is the issue. It has nothing to do with sexual harassment, and which was sent to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges. So it was there, the Committee on the Committee on Ethics, yes, of course, Public Petition and Privileges, now invited her to come and say her own part, which is natural, fair hearing, and she refused to oblige herself. It was later, on Wednesday, that she came up with the issue of the petition on sexual harassment. That was the first time the Senate, the public, the law enforcement, and any community was even aware of the allegation of formal allegation of sexual harassment.
So what's the status of that petition?
Sadly and unfortunately,
what's the status of that petition?
Sorry?
What's the status of that petition she represented to the Senate?
The petition she came with on Thursday was the petition she wrote on the issue of sexual harassment. That's the petition she brought. And that is the same day that the Committee on Ethics and Privileges were bringing in the report. So her petition was like any other petition, and which she was obliged to present. And it was observed that in the same petition she wrote, she put her name and sign, which is not the practice. Is there in the standing order that a senator cannot sign his or her own petition? It's not something which is today. But unfortunately, it seems that she has not been reading her standing order to understand what the rules are.
Honorable, what we know at the moment is that she has represented that petition to the Senate. Is that true?
Of course, when it was observed, because of the generosity of the principal officer, the presiding officer, she was obliged to represent when she moved up again to say a constituent from her constituency brought a petition. Okay. And it was forwarded to Ethics and Privileges. Okay. It's the same process which was given. And that was just yesterday. Okay. So it has nothing to do with the issue of the breach of the standing order, the breach of the rules.
I hear you. I hear you. And just now you've said the petition has been referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics Privileges for investigation. And the committee has also given 4 weeks to conduct its probe and report to the Senate. You know, there are those who have said to sustain the integrity of the Senate, the honorable thing is for the Senate President to step aside till this investigation is over. They say he cannot preside over his own case. I wonder how you react to that.
No. Yeah, the issue of stepping aside is the standard practice usually. If the petition goes in procedurally correct, and all the parties will be invited to the committee to testify. The Senate President will only step down when they are deliberating on the report of the committee. But we have not gotten to that point yet. But to now ask the Senate President to step down now, let me give you an example. A lot of people have been talking about the issue of stepping down, including Senator Bukola Saraki. You don't step down, stepping down is when the report is brought for deliberation. For example, Senator Saraki served as the Senate President, the 8th Senate President, and it was coming from Code of Conduct. It was in a Code of Conduct. It was coming to preside over the Senate. You will remember the issue of Ofa robbery incident that took place, where, whether correctly or politically motivated, but the Senate President's name then was generously mentioned. The police even came and made an open release and comments on it of complicity of the then Senate President. But he never stepped down. So why are we now saying here on an issue that has nothing to do with the person of the Senate President, either the office of the Senate President or the personality of the presiding officer, Senator Godswill Akpabio?
All right, then. Honorable Senator, let's talk about this.
And pray that because to Senator Natasha, it seems to me as a person that the sports of weaponizing on feminism is very familiar to her.
All right, Honorable Senator, let me remind you also that for the purpose, kindly hold on, for the purpose of this conversation, I want us to be very civil. I do not want you to, start calling names and, put up some unsubstantiated allegations. I'm not calling names,
but I am saying that I am trying to add value to what I'm trying to say. Because if you follow the trend of this sexual harassment and the personality, it looks like sexual harassment allegation is becoming a sport, and it is always in her.
So let's talk about let's now talk about it. Let's talk about it. I mean, we've heard the Senate President's position, but what could have transpired that would have made a sitting senator accuse the Senate President of sexual harassment? One, both senators are family friends. Senate President Akpabio publicly acknowledged the type of relationship that existed between both families before now. He was at the wedding ceremony of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. How did both of them get to this point?
I don't think that distinguished Senator Natasha, I don't think that she has regards to relationship. She has regards to friendship. She values most of these things. I'm not mentioning them, but if that were so, the issue of Reno Omokri will have not, you are conversant with that, is in the public domain, wouldn't have taken place. If it is so, when she was a staff of Brass LNG, which she worked for 5 years, by her personal account, the issue of sexual harassment, that's what I'm saying, is more or less like sports to her, regardless of the personality, regardless of her relationship with the persons who are victims and potential victims. So the issue of family, the issue of relationship, it doesn't really matter to her. Because if it really mattered to her, she and her husband, according by her account, went to Senator Akpabio's house. And these are people who have been friends over the years. And she is saying that during the birthday of Senator Akpabio, that then, it was then that she was with her husband, Senator Akpabio held her hand. If he wanted to harass her sexually, would he have been in the man's family house with the wife and all the security men in that house? Of course, you know the answer is no. Only that people are trying to weaponize it, you know. So what I'm saying is clearly, and I want you to appreciate that fact, that the issue of relationship, as far as Senator Natasha is concerned, it has no place in her consideration.
I agree with Honorable Semeibo. Some of us are oblivious of, National Assembly operations. But I listened to First Lady Senator Oluremi Tinubu, whose position on this matter is that the Senate is a place of honor and should not be where such things should happen. I mean, she went on to say, people compliment you all the time, and every female senator must protect herself and her honor. I'm tempted to ask, could this allegation have been some sort of unsolicited compliments gone wrong?
Well, Jumoke, I can tell you that it is not the use of feminism to weaponize that took the likes of Dr. Ngozi Iweala to the level she is. It is not Senator...
Honorable Semeibo, I do not think this is about feminism. This is about a senator who has alleged that the Senate president sexually harassed her. This is not about feminism. And at this point, I think it's important for us...
She's also trying to weaponize it. She's trying to weaponize it.
Well, you're also alleging...
As a senator, they all interact. As a senator, they all interact among themselves. They crack jokes. They share comic reliefs and all of that. So I don't know at what time. There are about 4 senators there in that place. And the Senate, the present Senate is the most friendly, gender-friendly Senate in the annals of our time. Her problem is simply that she was changed from the Senate Committee on Local Content to the Senate Committee on Diaspora.
So
simply, otherwise, she doesn't have any reason to behave the way she behaves and went ahead to put
because at this point,
very innocent, disciplined.
Honorable Semeibo, at this point, it's important for us all to know that legislative chambers must uphold the highest standards of professionalism to effectively serve the people and maintain trust. Inappropriate behavior such as unsolicited compliments or actions intended to make anyone happy or feel good about yourself should have no place in a place like the Senate. And you would agree with me that this undermines the integrity of the institution and can sometimes, or most times, create hostile environments, particularly for women. But for some senators who had one or two to say, they were strongly convinced that the bone of contention is the removal of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan from the Committee on Local Content. Why was she removed?
I can tell you that the appointment of every person, every senator, every member of parliament into any committee is usually driven by merit. The merit I'm talking about is the issue of capacity, the issue of output, the issue of the conduct, the personality of the headship or membership of that. If you were appointed into a particular committee to head, like in this case, then the output at the end of the day, because there is the issue of peer mechanism where they all monitor themselves to see, through oversight to through the issue of the management of the committees. You use it to, the leadership will use it to assess each of the senators. And in this case, it is not the issue of the Senate president. The leadership of the Senate, who are also members of one committee or the other, they must always look at the committees and rearrange it as much as possible, especially in cases where you have new entrants. She came in by, I think, October 2023, and within that period, if she doesn't understand standing orders, which is the first thing with the Constitution that is given to everybody, then how will she be able to understand the functionalities and
because
the expectations
she claimed
and the
she was
objectives of the committee?
Honorable Eseme, she claimed she was removed
Senate
from the Senate Committee on Local Content due to perceived biases, and that some lawmakers suspected she was diverting resources meant for the Niger Delta to the north. She also said this is because her tenure was marked by rigorous oversight, how she ensured accountability from agencies under its jurisdiction. So people thought the Senate was witch hunting her.
I can tell you for free, if you look at the Senate as it is now, there are 4 women. The 4 ladies, one, the lady from Lagos, the senator representing, I think, Lagos East, the senator from Lagos, she is the chairman of Humanitarian Committee, which is a very huge and sensitive committee. If you look at the Senator Baningo from Rivers State, she is the chairman of the Committee on Health Services, which, of course, no doubt, you cannot fault the elaborate nature of that committee. Senator Ireti Kinkibe is the chairman of the Senate Committee on Women Affairs, and Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan is the chairman committee on diaspora affairs, and I expect that her committee is even the best. But unfortunately, her problem is because of this mentality of a juicy committee. There is nothing like juicy committee in the parliament. It is the chairman of the committee who drives the committee to become juicy. Let me
and this has also raised questions about the high level of favoritism over competence in the Senate. But how does the Senate President also intend to address the allegations raised by Joy Noel, who was a former director in NDDC? She claimed in 2020 that she slapped Senator Akpabio cause of sexual harassment.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that we have come to a level where tab-brushing is becoming a public discourse. Now, the issue of the NDDC, you will agree and you know for sure that the most successful minister, and indeed the Niger Delta people, owe a debt of gratitude to Godswill Akpabio. That audit investigation, which was set up, forensic audit, it was anything that will rattle anybody. And anybody who was in office at that time and became a victim of that forensic audit would definitely go to anywhere and use tab brush, just like the way.
All right, Honorable. This is an ongoing conversation, and we'll be here to monitor these developments as they unfold. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Right Honorable Eseme, former spokesperson to the House of Reps and currently Special Advisor, Media and Publicity, and official spokesperson to the President of the Senate. Thank you so much for your perspective.
Thank you most sincerely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's go on a short break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Dr. Akpoti-Uduaghan, who is a lawyer and political affairs analyst. Stay with us, everyone. Conversations on the Senate suspension of Senator Natasha is Dr. Akpoti-Uduaghan, a U.S.-based lawyer and political affairs analyst. Dr. Akpoti-Uduaghan, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And I'm sure you heard my conversation with Honorable Eseme. So many orders have been quoted since the beginning of this matter, or the 40, or the 20, or the 6, or the 10. What's your impression about this matter that has now become a national issue?
Frankly, I think a lot of issues are getting confused or conflated, even by your show, with all due respect. I was watching the loop that we have of Senator Natasha, and you are showing the loop of her submitting document. Why not show us the loop where she was disrespecting the president? See that several, the Senate president, because for me, there are several issues here, okay? This whole problem, by her own mouth, started when she was reassigned, her seat was reassigned. She has not made any allegation that the Senate president doesn't have the power to reassign her seats. But according to the Red Book that they all swore to in the Senate, you can't speak from another microphone that is not your seat. See, the Senate is not for babies. It's supposed to be the most mature chamber that we have. So she was very disrespectful to the president of the Senate. I don't know her, I don't know the president, but I watched that video. I'm like, how can a senator be disrespecting the president of the Senate like this? Before then, there had been no allegations of sexual harassment. And I want to be clear because I know I'll be misquoted. Every sexual allegation is a very serious matter. This matter needs to be investigated, but you cannot use it to blackmail process or to change the process. She has never made any allegation of sexual harassment before she was moved. She herself explained the reason why she didn't like being moved. Oh, that place is not popular with the press. The press will not see you. These are stuff coming out of her own mouth. I listened to it. Then she also went to this brekete somewhere and she spoke about it also, that where they moved her to is a place where she will not be seen by the press. Was she sent to the Senate to go and be seen by the press or to go and help her people? That's where it started. Now, all of a sudden, allegations of sexual harassment has come out and everybody's supposed to be frozen. To me, this is unfair to Akpabio. It's unfair of her to bring that up at this point. If Akpabio has sexually harassed her, we should have heard of this before. She's now complaining about being removed in her seat. So the issue is, does Akpabio have a right to reassign her seat? Of course he does, according to their own rule. He does. That's Order 11, Rule 2. Okay? Does Akpabio control what is permissible in the Senate or not? He does. Rule 25. So he has not violated that. Okay? So, and now she has made sexual allegation to against the president, which I think should be investigated, but she has not brought any proof. And if we're not careful, what happened in the US that Trump is trying to now reverse is just a woman can just make an allegation, then everybody will believe her, and then we all have to keep quiet. So if you showed Nigerians a loop of her, the way she was talking in the Senate to the Senate president, maybe they will have a different quote, a different take about this. But you're not showing us that.
That video is everywhere, Dr. Bawo. But let's stay on course. The president of the Senate, according to the rules of the Senate, the president of the Senate shall allocate a seat to each senator. A senator may only speak from the seats allocated to him, provided that the president of the Senate may change the allocation from time to time. What I would love to get from you is, what then is the meaning of privilege in the Senate rules? If the now very popular Order 10 gives her that privilege, shouldn't that have made the Senate president suspend all of the matters and take her complaints?
You can't claim privilege when you're in violation of the constitution of your own house. What are you talking about? She cannot speak. The rule is clear. Rule 2 says senators may only speak from the seat allocated to him or her unless the Senate president gives further permission. If you're out of order there is no privilege you can raise. And that is the point. And in any case, this whole matter was not started by Akpabio, contrary to the impression some people are trying to give. It was started by Monguno, the chief whip. And that was his job. He is the one that told Akpabio that woman cannot speak from there because her seat has been allocated. Okay? And that is where it started. So she, as a senator, should have respected herself, go to her seat where she's supposed to speak, and then make whatever privilege you want to make from there. You can't claim privilege when you are out of order. That is a very simple thing. And people forget this. Okay, I don't speak for Akpabio. I'm not necessarily saying I even like the man. But the point is, he's the president of our Senate, and Senate is one of the most regulated chambers in Nigeria. They have this thing that is called the Red Book, that they even indoctrinate you on. You swear on it and all that when you come in. Senator Natasha obviously did not read a book. She did not even understand the rules that is going on. And then, after that show of shame, with all due respect, okay, in the Senate, we all watched it. I saw that. To now raise sexual harassment later as the basis on which our seats were reallocated I think it's unfair.
All right.
Because what happened was that some senators are decamped or whatever, there has been a change. So the seats were allocated, not just her, she was not the only one affected.
So now that she's been suspended, Dr. Bawu, bearing in mind I want you to help us with the legal angle to this. Bearing in mind the principle of separation of powers, the court says no senator or lawmaker can be suspended for more than 14 days, very specifically by the provisions of the Legislative House's Powers and Privileges Act 2018. A member of the Legislative House who is guilty of contempt or that house may be suspended but not more than 48 hours. The Senate rules in Order 67, subsection 4 says a senator cannot be suspended for more than 14 days. Is this the Senate going against its own rules? What is the legal implication? Is there any substance?
Yeah, that's a different thing entirely, and I do agree with you. Order 67, Rule 4 says they cannot suspend for more than 14 days. They've suspended her for 6 months. That, to me, is wrong. She probably will win in court. We've seen somebody do that. I forgot the name of that case. There was another senator that went to court and challenged this. Omagege, yes. Omagege challenged it, and the court was clear that you can't suspend him for more than 14 days. And in any case, even his own situation, they said there is no basis. So in this case, Natasha did comport herself without decorum in court, in which case is susceptible to discipline. But 6 months, I think, is definitely unfair. I think it's not according to the rules. Now, I'm not a senator. I've not crammed their red book, but I do know about Order 67, Rule 4, because it had come up before in some cases that we all witnessed, like Omoagege. So I don't know about this 6 months thing. But that's a separate issue. So there are like 4 issues here. The issue is, can the Senate President reassign your seat? Of course he can, according to your rule. Can you just make sexual allegations without submitting evidence? I think not, because even he might have done it or not do it, but I think every one of us, we want, if somebody's going to accuse me of doing something, to have proof. Otherwise, nobody is safe. Anybody can just wake up and say, you sexually harassed me, then we have to believe you. That's what the Democrats were doing in the U.S. That's what led to the rise of people like Trump. Because people got mad about that. That you can't just say, oh, I raped you, I tried to rape you, so people must believe you. So, and I think our raising it after the fact makes it even more suspicious. Now, again, I don't want to trivialize it at all. If our president of the Senate is involved in sexual harassment and he himself is becoming an A2 now, an antelope, because it's not the first time, okay, so that's making me think about this a little bit. It's not the first time he's been accused of sexual harassment. So that's making me not to quickly dismiss what Senator Natasha is saying, but I think the manner she's raising it is very suspect. It's sounding more like a blackmail allegation to me, and I will say, but we'll still give her the benefit of the doubt. An independent body should investigate the allegations outside of the influence of the Senate President so that it can be fair and fair. But that's got nothing to do with her suspension. Her suspension is about the way she conducted herself in the Senate, and people should understand that. And I want to challenge anybody who is trying to make this about the sexual allegation, show that video and let anybody watching you tell us they don't agree that she was very, very disrespectful. I want to see the video, because you've shown us her moving in the Senate. She looks like a very calm lady, behaving properly. Show us the video. She was not. I don't know her. I saw that video and I was disgusted. How can a senator behave like that? If a man did that, they will suspend him. So if a woman do it, why shouldn't they suspend her? This is the way we should view these things. We can't, while women should be protected, we should not give them extraordinary rights because they are women, just because they made a claim. If people have been suspended before, she won't be the first. Ningi was suspended. Omagege was suspended. Aline Dume was suspended. There is nothing new about Senate suspending their own for conduct they found unbecoming. And in our own case, our conduct is very unbecoming. I'm still looking for that video, man. You're not showing it.
I'm sure my producers will put it up. I mean, the video is everywhere. But what lessons do you think the Senate and the leadership of the Senate and the senators should take away from this episode?
Well, I think what we should take away is, one, they should all understand that Senate, whatever is happening there is a big reflection on Nigeria. People should follow order, and we should not be sentimental about judging what happened there. these things could have been settled. Even her seat, okay, when she was reassigned, there's a way she could have handled it instead of blowing this thing out. And number 3 thing I think everybody should take away, if you are being sexually assaulted, you make the allegation then, so that it's not confused. If this woman has made this allegation before the seat was reassigned, I'll be talking something different. I'll be saying, oh yeah, maybe he doesn't want to sleep with him, is why he's reassigning her. But we didn't hear anything like that. So, and again, I want to say this. I think with all due respect, without leviticizing sexual harassment, I don't look at that woman as somebody that can be sexually harassed. She's a senator.
No, let's not go there, Dr. Banwe. Let's not go there. Let's not go there at all. But again, does this speak to, or in any way speak to, a level of favoritism, nepotism that goes on in our public institutions? I mean, the Senate this time, favoritism over competence. And I'm asking because, you know, the public denigration of the institution has just opened the eyes of Nigerians to the array of appointments to undeserving lawmakers in the National Assembly. And I'm saying this or asking this question because we heard Senator Sunday Karimi from Kogi West, who narrated to us how he begged and lobbied for Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan's chairmanship appointment when indeed she didn't deserve it at that time. And there were other competent lawmakers who could have been, you know, chairman of this committee. When indeed at that time there were other, apart from, I mean, even from Kogi West or Kogi Central, there were other lawmakers who could have taken up this position. Senate President Akpabio at that time bent the rules for her, which has backfired today. How does our country move forward with situations such as this?
Well, I don't know. We've all been asking that everything should be based on merit, but I want to ask, is Senator Natasha a senior senator that she would deserve to sit in front or to get plumb? This thing, Senate is a fraternity, but whether of men and women together, it's according to they respect seniority a lot, connections, and how long you have served. So for me, from what I understand, she's also the chairperson of the diaspora committee. I thought that was a very powerful committee. That's a committee that is good. So I don't know the details about how they choose who will become what in the Senate, but I do know that it's a highly hierarchical chamber. Okay, you have to be at a senior level for you to be able to sit in front or to sit in a particular place. So if she is not a very senior senator and then some things happen, some people defected and they rearrange the seats and then they put her somewhere that she doesn't like, she didn't handle it well. There's a way you could have lobbied behind it. They are all politicians. They could have talked to themselves behind that. Oh, God, I don't like that. They would have lobbied and maybe she would have gotten what she wanted. Even, by the way, Akpabio himself was in the same situation as this lady before. People forget that. Where he spoke, they also changed his seat. He wanted to speak from another, they didn't change his seat. He wanted to speak from the seat of another senator because his microphone was not working. And Saraki said, no, you cannot do that. And they got into it. But guess what? Later, Akpabio apologized when they finally explained the rule to him that you cannot speak from a desk that is not the one you are assigned by the rules. When they sorted it out, he apologized to Saraki. In his own case, he was not even addressing the Senate president. He was addressing the majority leader because he recognized that in the Senate president is all powerful. It's like our executive president. That's not Akpabio's fault. That's the constitution you gave him. The Senate president is basically, under Rule 25, was given the power to be responsible for rule observance and to also interpret the rules, which I think is crazy. But that's what is in our constitution. That the Senate president
and the Senate leadership has said for the Senate to consider lifting or reducing the period of suspension, Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan will have to submit a written apology to the Senate. What do you anticipate? I mean, if I'm to go by her departing speech, she said it looks like she's all about justice in the court of law. Do you see her apologizing?
Yeah, there are two issues. On the issue of a decorum on the Senate floor, absolutely 100%, she needs to apologize, not just to the president of the Senate, but to the whole of Nigerians. It was disgusting. But as for the issue of the sexual allegation, oh no, you can't apologize if you are saying somebody sexually assaulted you. It needs to be properly investigated in a way that is free and fair. Okay, so to me, that's my own opinion there.
All right. A great place to leave the conversation tonight. Dr. Weber, we're U.S.-based lawyer, political affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your perspective on politics tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But before we go, let's tell you that the views and reactions of our resource person are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Meanwhile, you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at midnight. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. You're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great weekend, everyone.